gather and participate in the life and work of the Regional Council, regardless of age, ability, race, cultural background, and sexual orientation or gender identity. In this space, all are welcome. And so as we begin, I like to burn candles. And so I'm just going to light this candle to remind us that as we gather, we do not gather alone. We gather in the presence of love and light, who welcomes us and calls us beloved. As the light from this candle dances among us this evening, may it remind us that we are children of the light, who follow Jesus, our light, and who are called to bring light to our world. So let us welcome the light and let it guide us as we gather this evening. Now, I did have a 3-point sermon, but the boys told me I couldn't preach tonight. So let's just begin with a word of prayer. Let us pray. Loving God, we give you thanks for our church. We give you thanks for our faith communities. We give you thanks for the people who serve you in our churches. And we ask that you would come by your Spirit tonight and guide us and encourage us and give us wisdom as we seek to do this important task. And so be with us now. This we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. So thank you, and I turn it over to Todd.
And I'm Todd McDonald, joining you from Barrie, Ontario, and the land of the territory of the Three Fires Confederacy. So I'm so glad to be here with you. So the purpose tonight is that we want to orient you. We're assuming that everyone's new. And if you're not new, well, this pretend you're new, M&P committee member, and we want to orient you to your responsibilities and purpose for your role. And so by the end of the workshop, we're really hoping that you'll be able to understand the difference between being a member of a church and being an M&P member. And being an M&P member is different from your time before when you were a regular member of a church. So we're gonna talk about the difference, and that you'll be able to identify at least 2 helpful images for the role of being an M&P committee and find which one fits you best and what gifts you bring to that role. And finally, we want you to be able to apply a communication strategy that supports and values your employees and your minister, especially during a time of difficulty when you're needing people to talk to each other. So we're gonna do some of that work with you, and that's our purpose. That's what we hope to do. And I'm going to take this down, and Dale's going to put a poll up there for us. So Dale, will you throw the poll up in front of us, please?
I will do that.
Thank you. So you'll see the list of responsibilities that we asked you to read over in your handbook. If you didn't have a chance, that's okay. But what we're going to do is you're going to be able to click on that, click on there to choose one responsibility that is the most challenging for you. So you can imagine that this responsibility, boy, that's challenging for me. So the first one is being available for consultation and support for matters involving the church staff, including your minister. Is that challenging? Or is it overseeing the relationship of the pastoral church staff to each other and to people in the congregation? Maybe it's C, which is regularly reviewing working conditions, responsibilities, and compensation of all pastoral church staff, or making recommendations as needed as a result of these reviews to the governing body or church board, or revisiting position description and making changes. Is that challenging? Or conducting annual performance reviews. Or finally, ensuring church staff make use of opportunities for continuing education. Just take a minute and mark one of those that seems the most challenging for you. Go right ahead.
I just want to acknowledge in the chat box, Todd, Tara says that she's too new to the job to know which of the jobs is most challenging. So that's fair.
That's fair enough. Sure. Yeah. So Dale, you're going to help me because I can't see the poll, or maybe I can. No, I can't see that. So Dale, maybe you could take up the poll and ask people, and what do you notice there, Dale, in the poll?
Yeah, so responses are still coming in. We've had about 40 out of 56 who have participated. So if you haven't, last chance. But so what we have so far is that 17% or 7 out of the responses find being available for consultation and support for matters involving church staff to be the most challenging. 14 or 31%, which is the most of all the responses so far, would find overseeing the relationship of the pastoral charge staff to each other and to people in the congregation to be the most challenging. And then we have 9 out of 45 or 20% who would find regularly reviewing the working conditions, the responsibilities and compensation of all the pastoral charge staff to be the most challenging. Just 2 would find making any recommendations needed as a result of these reviews to the governing body to be the most challenging. Another 2 or 4% would find revising the position descriptions of pastoral charge staff to be the most challenging. And then another fairly significant chunk, 24%, would find conducting annual performance reviews of the congregation staff to be the most challenging. And nobody actually chose the last option, which was ensuring church staff make use of opportunities for continuing education.
Thank
So
you.
that's an overview of the poll, Todd.
Thank you so much. Hey, thanks, Dale. I appreciate that. So you're starting to see maybe some of the things that you're going to listen for this evening, for maybe some ways that we're going to talk about overseeing the relationship, and maybe you'll get some sense of that. And also our Shining Waters website page for MMP committees and the Canadian Shield and the MMP handbooks have some resources for annual performance reviews. And so so there are resources out there for you when you're not quite sure. And if you need to get contact or in touch with those resources, you can be in touch with one of us and we can help you find those things. So now I'm going to put up a page for Rob, and here I'm going to share this for you, Rob, and then over to you in the next step of our workshop.
Okay, thanks, Todd. And, we talked a little bit about the difference from the day before you were an MNP member and the day after you decided to say, yes, I want to be an MNP minister, a member, MNP committee member, is this thing called dual relationships. And they're perhaps one of the hardest parts of being a member of the MNP committee. We usually come to this role from a place of active involvement in our church and sometimes from a previous relationship with the staff as a church member. As a member of the Ministry and Personnel Committee, you are also a member of the community of faith. And there's the two relationships. Sometimes you relate to an employee or minister from your role as a member of the MNP committee, and sometimes as a church member, and sometimes as a friend. For example, the music leader is an employee, but you might be a member of the choir, and so you relate in a different place from there. And so one way to understand this dual relationship is to think about what hat that you're wearing today. And isn't that a lovely hat that young girl is wearing today? Don't we all wish we had a hat that colorful to wear? But as we begin a conversation, begin an email, send a letter or a card by stating which relationship are you coming from. This means taking the time to kind of sort out take time to sort out which relationship, what hat you're wearing. Because sometimes they overlap and sometimes you need to be clear to the person you're speaking to that what hat you're wearing. I need to talk to you about some feedback about your sermon. That would be your MNP hat. I need to talk to you about my daughter. That might be a personal hat. Conflict often makes it even harder. For example, the minister and the choir director are embroiled in a conflict. You care for the minister, but you also care for the choir director. You also care for your church. And sometimes you must be aware of how all of these relationships overlap. At Knox, where I was a minister for a number of years, the chair of the M&P committee was a woman named Gloria. And we actually became friends. And at one point she decided it was important for her to step down as a member of the M&P committee because she couldn't always separate herself and her role as a friend. Not being aware of your dual relationship can lead to misunderstandings that complicate both of your roles as a member of the congregation and as an M&P committee minute. So being aware of what hats you're wearing helps both of you and your employer and employees be at ease, since they don't have to guess what hats you're wearing. So I now invite Dale to talk to us about how the relationship between employer and employee is different in the church.
Talking about sort of dual hats and dual relationships, I want to talk about the church as a workplace. And for many of you, you will up to this point have seen the church primarily as a place where you worship or you attend programs, and not necessarily as a workplace, because you don't work there, but now you're on the M&P committee. And so we need to think about the church as a workplace, because of course that's what it is. Whether you have one employee, whether you have 15 employees, or anywhere in between, the church is the employer and the church is the workplace. And so I would like you to think about how the church is different as a workplace from other kinds of workplaces. So I'm sure that most of us or all of us have been in different work environments. It might be an office environment, might be a school, it might be a hospital, lots of different possibilities for workplaces. But the church is maybe not something we've seen as the workplace. And so I'm going to actually put you into some small groups. And Todd, if you could throw up the slide. And so the question that we have for you is, what makes the church different from other workplaces? You can think about your own workplace. You can think about the workplace of your partner or of your children or any workplace. But what makes the church a different place to work than other workplaces? And I'm going to give you about 10 minutes or so in breakout rooms. Introduce yourselves very briefly, but don't spend too much time on that, because we really want you to think about the question. And then when you come back, we're going to ask you to throw up some of the key differences or some of the key things that make the church a unique workplace. So we're not going to get a report in from all the groups. It'll take too long, but we'll ask you to throw some of your ideas up into the chat. So I'm going to create the breakout rooms now. And you'll get an invitation. Please hit the accept button, and then you'll be put into groups of probably 3 or 4, and you'll have a chance to discuss this question: what makes the church different from other workplaces? So I'm going to open the rooms. I'll give you about a 2-minute warning when your time is coming to an end, so you can wrap up your conversations. And we'll see you all back here in about 10 minutes. Have a good conversation. So hope you had good discussions, and we'd like to hear what some of your ideas were. So please throw them out into the chat, and Rob is going to monitor what's in the chat and feed that to the whole group. So what were some of the key differences that you talked about in terms of the church as a workplace? Please. It doesn't have to be someone assigned from the group. Anybody from the group and all the groups, please throw that up, and Rob, tell us what's coming up there.
Our group discussed boundaries.
And say a bit more about that. What about boundaries?
I'll just jump in. It's just I'm probably faster to talk than type. So
Sure.
there were 4 of us, and I think almost everybody mentioned the notion of boundaries, both actually in our own roles as working on the committee, but also for our staff team and how they set boundaries. Because as one of the members of our group said, I go to church for solace, and that's my recharging time. But by the same token, I'm also there to support the staff. And then I also have to help them create boundaries, and we have to help them create boundaries too, so that people understand the limits of what our staff team does, just as we also have to understand the limits of what we can do to give in this volunteer role.
Nice. Thank you, Jane, for expounding on that thought about boundaries. That's really helpful.
Martha shared that it's a very personal environment.
Mm-hmm.
And Dorothy went on to say it's team-oriented and communication. I would imagine that communication is important.
So just thinking about that one around communication. Yeah, I mean, you have a church full of people, and you can get a lot of conversations going in a church about employees, and sometimes those conversations are going to need to be channeled. We'll talk about that later in terms of confidentiality and so forth. But yeah, church can be a big place with lots of people wanting to kind of jump in on the communication. Yeah.
So I've got 13 of these, so
Okay.
I'll try and go them quickly. Different kind of relationships due to shared spiritual beliefs.
Okay.
In an office setting, processes and policies are set and known. There is a hierarchy in reporting and managing. You don't necessarily have that in the church. Lois Scott says that there are many bosses. And I remember my days as a minister in a church, and I did feel like a room full of bosses. And Judith goes on to say, can be too many bosses in a church, whereas at a workplace, you sort of know who's the boss. That's true too. Also, you have a relationship with the staff and pastoral team. And when you move to M&P, you suddenly have a different look at what happens within the church. Being responsible for working on interpersonal issues when we don't work in the church workplace will require more time spent listening and asking good questions to gain reasonable understanding. That's true.
Right. So as M&P committee, you're not seeing your employees every day. You might only see them once a week, or maybe not even. And so that's a different environment.
M&P are volunteers without an HR background in a church, very different from other workplaces. That's true.
Yeah, some might have HR background, but in many cases, yeah, they don't. Yeah.
Work environments where the staff are not supervised as closely as others. High and varied, unreasonable expectations of staff. Staff work in isolation, alone in the building at times.
Yeah.
Level of commitment, responsibility, and stress is less in the role as M&P than in his role as paid employee. No one to go to when you have questions about what should be done for different policies. We work with people rather than for people. People have lots of opinions. That's so true. And they don't have any problems telling you about them.
Right.
Discussed how staff at church work in a fishbowl. That's true. Mentioned that feedback, voicing of concern and criticism is more common in a church setting than in another workplace. It's emotional and personal, and not always easy for the minister and staff to have 50 to 100 bosses. Setting boundaries is part of the role. Staff can be friends, so awkward to supervise them. The church is a calling rather than just a job. Reporting relationships clearer in a bureaucracy. The church's sacred space, so seems quite different than an office. And that is all of your comments. Wow, thank you. Great insight.
Yeah, that's. I think you've really hit on most of the main points that we've been thinking about and that we come across as pastoral relations minister. Todd, is there anything that you wanted to pick up on that you saw there?
Well, I saw there when you talk about some of the staff might be friends.
Yes.
And so when we talk about what hat are we wearing as MMP, and boundaries, that's a tough place to be, especially if you have to bring a tough conversation to a staff person. And so you might want to think about how you do that and how you bracket yourself. It may be that you're not the one that has that conversation with that staff person. Think about how you can stay clear, have clear boundaries, especially if one of those staff people are friends. But you're right, these are relationships, these are precious people, and we're all in it together. And sometimes it's hard to figure out those boundaries. Dale?
Yeah, just to pick up on that a little bit. I can throw it out as a question, but what do people think about hiring someone who is a direct family member of a congregant? So whether that's a custodian or church administrator or another employee, because I have seen that, and it happens. And there's nothing in our polity that explicitly prohibits it, but I can say that it has it can create difficult situations down the road when that employee doesn't work out for some reason, or there's a conflict, and that employee's sister or brother or mother or father or whoever is on the board, or even just a congregant. And so it's something to really think about carefully. Yeah. So I'm looking at the time, and I think maybe we'll move on from this discussion. So thank you for all those comments. And I'm going to invite Todd to introduce a video that we're going to look at.
Okay. So we've been talking about relationships, haven't we? And one of the things we did a few years back was we were having some meeting, and there were a bunch of ministers there. And so we got out our camera and we asked them this question. We asked them, tell us what kind of relationship you would like with your MMP committee. What kind of relationship would you like with the MMP committee? And as you watch this video, I'd like to keep this in mind. As you watch and reflect on the minister's comments, what surprised you, or what surprises you as you listen? If there's anything that surprised you, and is there anything that's new? So, I hadn't thought of that before. That's new. So as you watch the video, think about, oh, that's surprising. I wouldn't have thought that. And what's new? So here we go. We're going to watch the video, and then we'll talk about it after.
I would say that two things are kind of crucial. One is that the committee comes with questions more than with statements. Questions like, what is it that the work that you're doing, how is that rooted in your values, or in your vision and your understanding of what ministry is? What's behind doing it this way as opposed to maybe doing it that way? And how can we help to interpret that so that people understand better what's behind the some of the obvious things that behaviors that you're manifesting for the congregation. The other question I think that's really important is, and how is this all connected to the mission statement of the congregation? So this is the mission statement, presumably is the vision statement that the congregation has created, and how is that connected to your vision? Is your vision aligned with the congregation's vision? And help us to understand how the two are really meshed so that we can work together. And is all the activity and work that you're doing enabling the congregation to grow and to appreciate itself as it is a community of faith and mission in this context.
I'd like it to be one based in trust and easy flowing communication. I would like M&P to be prayerful, thoughtful, be able to challenge me when I need it in a compassionate and thoughtful way, be responsive. I would like them to be really committed and really understand that ministry is important and that having a safe and good work environment and schedule is important to my health, my ministry, and it is then very important to the relationship in the church and the ministry in the church.
I'd like to have some kind of friendly relationship with a deep trust within the members, so I can contact them or the chair of MMP anytime without any hesitation to deal with any domestic or wider issues, even my personal issues. I like to talk with them with openness and with sincerity. So in order to make that kind of relationship, I think is a friendship and some kind, because Jesus calls us as friends. So which means God calls us as friends, not as servant or slave, so or minister. So we have to make friends to one another. That's what I like to do in my ministry.
I'm really grateful for everyone who chooses to serve on an M&P committee, because this is really, really important work. And I just hope that everybody can be very prayerful and thoughtful in their deliberations and their interactions with each other.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Dale, for sharing that. So folks, I want you to get back on your chat. And so what surprised you? What surprised you from that video? What did you notice? What was new for you? Start to throw things into the chat, and Dale's going to follow along with the chat and tell us what it says. I know we were just talking about being friends, and we heard there that one of the ministers wants to be friends, and I think there's probably some depth of understanding behind his comment that maybe we're not aware of. But what do you think?
So Carolyn talks about the depth of expectations that she saw in the video. Ministers have a lot of expectations of the M&P committee.
M&P committee, I think, is a very crucial and trusted role in the church. So I can see that expectation. Go ahead, Dale.
Yeah. Natalie says leading with curiosity is a good thing to consider.
That's awesome. I like that.
Yeah.
Curiosity questions. I wonder. Open, honest questions are a wonderful skill for M&P members to bring to their relationship with staff. Open, honest questions about, so tell me more about how we can support you in your work. Great, open, honest question. Go ahead, Dale.
Yeah, so Bill noticed that how important trust is to those ministers, that the trust in the relationship between the M&P committee and the minister is really important to ministers.
Yes.
Melanie said she loved the ministers wanting questions rather than comments.
Let's hold on to that one. That is a wonderful, wonderful comment. Thank you, Melanie.
Yeah. Sandra, last comment here for now. Sandra said that she noticed the ministers appreciate being challenged, but in a positive and caring way. So different ways to challenge, and sometimes it can feel threatening, and sometimes it can feel supportive. And so she noticed that they wanted to be challenged, but in a positive and caring way. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And then Kathy writes that creating a safe environment for them, like both physical, but probably more importantly, physiologically or psychologically, creating a safe environment for them is really important, that came through.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Another comment from Karen, thinking that M&P is responsible for supporting a positive relationship between the congregation and the minister, but not necessarily a friend of the minister. So Karen is wondering about that I think that friendship comment that Sung Min made at the end.
Yes, and I think when I've talked and gotten to know Sung Min over the years, it was really around that trust issue, that trust word, that he can have those kinds of conversations and know that he's safe. That's what he was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Boy, thank you for your feedback, folks, and for your engaging that video. And keep that in mind as we go into our next section here. So I'm going to turn it over to Dale now, and we're going to do a bit of a role play for you.
Thank you, Todd. So in a moment, Rob is going to talk about two roles that you have as an M&P committee. He's going to talk about your role as a trusted confidant of your employees and your role as a trusted supervisor. And you're going to be called on to fulfill both of those roles as an M&P committee member. Your employees are going to come to you with questions and issues and probably conflicts at times. And if your employees don't come to you, you're probably going to go to your employees with concerns and issues, and you may spot a conflict. And so to make this a bit more real, Todd and Rob and I are going to do some role playing for you. And so here's the scenario. I, Dale, am the M&P chair, and I have picked up on, and I've also listened to a few people saying in the hallways and in the narthex that there is conflict between our minister, Rob, and our music director, Todd. And so I want you to listen to the first part of the conversation, Act 1, for what the issue is, and thinking particularly about just what the issue is. And so Act 1, M&P chair, myself, meets the music director, Todd. Hey, Todd, how's it going?
I'm doing okay, but I'm doing okay. Yeah.
I'm sensing maybe not quite okay. Like, how did you feel about the worship service yesterday?
Dale, I appreciate you come and talk with me. There's just not going to be good worship here in this church until Rob lets me do my job as music director. Dale, I'm just getting so sick and tired of constantly negotiating with Rob around decisions, the music decisions that are clearly mine to make, and it's driving me totally bonkers.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about what's happening here around the way that you relate to Rob. What's happening?
Well, he doesn't know the first thing about music. That's the first thing. And he's constantly questioning my choices of hymns and anthems. And holy Hannah, Dale, he's got to be the most stubborn person I've ever met. Surely you've noticed that. Like, for instance, okay, so 2 weeks ago was Peace Sunday.
Right.
You get what I mean? Peace Sunday. And what song does he want us to sing? Onward, Christian Soldier. Like, really, does he have any clue about what's going on around him? Sometimes I get the impression that he's just really out to embarrass me.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that the issue is who picks the music for worship and how that fits with the worship theme. Is that right?
It's not a question. It's my job to pick the music. It's right there in black and white in my job description that I was hired with. Dale, I just need you to go and talk to Rob and let him know that he needs to do his job and I'll do my job.
Okay, that's the end of Act One. And so, so Todd has shared his frustrations with me. And so what am I going to do next? How can I bring this issue to our minister, Rob, with a view to being both a trusted confidant and a trusted supervisor for both of these employees of the church. So I'm going to meet with Rob, the minister, and you pay attention to what happens here, and then we're gonna dissect it a little bit. So Rob, hi, good to meet with you, and yeah, I'm just wondering how you felt about the worship service yesterday.
Oh, thank God, Dale, for asking me. Because I just thought that service was awful, absolutely awful. And it's all because of Todd's music choices. I don't know where did you see how frustrated people were trying to sing those crazy new songs? He doesn't seem to understand where the congregation is.
I know. I don't know where he gets these ideas. I just tuned out, so to speak.
Well, you're the M&P chair. You should talk to him and tell him to stop this nonsense.
I did. He blames it all on you.
Oh, is that so, does he? What do you say? What did he say?
Well, he thinks you're really being stubborn and that you don't know the first thing about music. He told me that he thinks you're just out to embarrass him, actually.
Oh. Well, is that a fact? I'm meeting with him later today. He's going to get us peace of my mind.
Okay, well, good luck with that. Try not to throttle him. And that's the end of Act One, Scenario One.
So what just happened in that conversation? What do you think is going to happen next? What may have just happened in the relationship with the M&P chair and the music director? And I'd give you time to talk about that, but I'm going to jump. Oops, what am I doing here? I got too many spotlights going on. Okay.
People have some ideas already, Rob.
Okay.
Well, I just threw Todd under the bus. Collusion between the minister and the M&P person. So
Taking sides.
Karen says nothing fair and balanced about that discussion.
Mhm.
So let's put that aside for a moment, that case study, and just look at these two things, these two ways of understanding our role. One is the trusted confidant, but keep that role play in mind and sort of think about how would a trusted confidant, I think in some ways Dale was trying to be that trusted confidant, almost bordering on being a friend. And anyways, but a trusted confidant is someone who listens without judgment and offers advice only when solicited. There's a sense, when we're talking about a trusted confidence, there's a sense of intimacy and support. The trusted confidant provides a place for an employee to share their concerns and brainstorm ideas and possible solutions to issues in a safe environment. A trusted confidant is a sounding board, a place to consult, a place to provide feedback that is consistent and clear. Now, when we talk about a trusted confidant, we have to also talk about these things that are on our screen right now. Confidentiality, ensuring that private information is not disclosed to others. So you can sort of see that perhaps Dale crossed a boundary there by telling me, by, kind of expressing Todd's, not thinking I knew anything about music. Um, there's a line from Parker Palmer's Circle of Trust touchstones that I find really helpful to think about in our work is no fixing, saving, advising, or correcting each other. That's sort of part of that trusted confidant, being the person that listens, the person that asks questions. Confidentiality is about what is said here remains here. And it's always good to check if you were clear. When a minister or an employee comes to you and says, I have this concern, just to check with that. Now, what would you like me to do with that concern, right? Because as a trusted confidant, sometimes the employee wants to speak to you and just sort of work through some frustrations and doesn't necessarily want you to take it on and fix it. Just needs a place to speak about it. There are limits to confidentiality, just in the sense someone is in danger to themselves or to another person, and then there's any concerns about child abuse. And the other thing to keep in mind is transparency. Methods and procedures are clear and open and can be questioned. In this case, Dale could have said to Todd, this is how I'm going to proceed from this, and be clear about the process. People have a right to know about the systems that affect their well-being, and people will have a say in how the information is used and why it's needed. Secrecy is, of course, the opposite of transparency. Withholding information for the purpose of control sets up a power dynamic of insider and outsider, and you've got a bit of that, I think, with Dale and Rob's conversation. They were the insiders, and poor Todd was the outsider. So as a trusted confidant, how would you handle that situation? The other one is the trusted supervisor. Now, it can be seen kind of as a less intimate, and yet it's still committed to caring for the employee. Provides clear direction in job description and performance review, addresses concerns quickly and appropriately, and offers helpful and consistent feedback, knows how to access policy and procedures both in the United Church and government. And so, in this case, what could, as a trusted supervisor, how could Dale have acted differently in this situation? Notes do say, I invite Todd to now lead us in a conversation about those two images.
Well, thank you, Rob. That's awesome. Yeah. So if you've got that experience of the scenario, the role play that you just watched in your mind, and you saw a good listening process with Todd, the music director, but then you saw the M&P committee, M&P chair, break confidentiality. You saw that the M&P chair take sides and want to be chummy with the minister and get on the minister's side, and also set up a huge conflict between the two by breaking confidentiality. I hope you felt that in your bones, even if you couldn't analyze just what was happening there. But one of the things, if you had to choose, now that you know how important trusted confidant and trusted supervisor, first trusted confidant, if you had to choose one word to describe the trusted confidant, if you had one word that you wanted to use to describe trusted confidant, what's one word that you would use? And put it into the chat right now, if you would. What is one word you'd use to describe the trusted confidant? And Dale's going to help me out by watching the chat.
Yeah, so words are starting to pour in already, Todd.
Yeah.
Impartial. A trusted confidant needs to be impartial.
Nice. Not taking sides.
Ethical.
Wow. Wonderful.
Listening.
Mm-hmm.
Listening. Fair. Need to be fair.
Yeah, treating The equality, yes, and equity.
Good listener again. Honest,
Mhm.
confidential, exclamation mark.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh boy, do we ever know? And when we say confidential, that even includes pillow talk, folks. That you're not talking to your partner in bed about that M&P conversation you had with the custodian. That kind of confidentiality.
Yeah. Integrity is another word that comes up. Supportive. Yeah.
Support. And Dale, you know, sometimes I have M&P committee question that says, well, everything's got to be confidential. What do we say to the governing, like, what do we report then as M&P members? What do we talk about at a governing body meeting if everything is confidential? Dale, is everything confidential? What is not confidential?
Yeah, not everything is confidential. There's a few there's some areas where the M&P committee is actually a recommending body to the board and is not making decisions and keeping things under wraps. So, for example, termination, hiring and termination. Those are not decisions for the M&P committee to make. Those are decisions for the board. And we do, as pastoral relations ministers, we do get a lot of questions about, okay, we have an employee that we just had it with, and this employee needs to be terminated. And what do we tell the board? And so, you know, I can't go into all the steps here. That's probably another workshop, but you would want to inform the board at some point that you're dealing with a situation that's may require some progressive discipline with an employee. So that, and the reason you would do that is you don't want the board to be surprised and shocked when you come back, 2 or 3 months later and say, we're recommending this employee be terminated. But you don't have to share names. What the board wants to know is that you're doing your job, that you're on top of stuff. They may hear stuff through the congregation that there's a problem with the employee, and if they hear from the M&P committee in terms of what their process is, that'll reassure the board that our committee's on top of it, and they're going to come back to us with a good recommendation. So.
Thank you, Dale. That's great. Yeah, I think, Dale, if you put three stars in one of the chats, and we'll divide this. And I think just to finish that up, you as M&P committee, it's really important to talk about processes. Talk about what processes, what actions. So we're now doing annual reviews with our staff, and we'll be bringing back recommendations for maybe changes to the position descriptions. You can talk about your work with staff processes, but if somebody shares a story, if an employee comes in and talks to you about a conflict, those stories belong in the circle of the M&P committee, unless you ask permission to share. And if you are going to share anything of a personal nature with the governing body, you must first ask permission of the person who shared that, or the employee who shared that with you. So now, if you think about trusted supervisor, what's one word that's really important? What's a word to describe the trusted supervisor? We talk about loyalty, fairness, listening with the confidant. What about trusted supervisor? What's one word you'd use to describe that after listening to what Rob has said?
Todd, there's a question that came at the end of that first conversation.
Yeah.
And maybe while people are typing in the words, we can just address that. So the question from Marie J is, should more than one M&P committee member attend a conflict meeting with employees?
I think that's a good idea, and you could even invite that employee to bring a support person with them as they have this conversation with you. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good, great question, Marie.
So So the words that are coming in for trusted supervisor, one word. So Tara says predictable.
Mhm.
So to me, that speaks to no surprises from the M&P committee. Wow, why did they do that with that employee and then this with the other employee? You know, so predictable. Fairness is coming up again, both in as trusted confidant and a trusted supervisor. Jane Taylor talks about professional approach to issues. Yeah, professional approach. So to me, that speaks of you know, knowing what your policies are, treating people fairly, treating people courteously. Yeah,
It talks about planning too, being really intentional
yeah,
and planning and
Yeah.
praying at the beginning of a time with a difficult conversation and
Yeah.
asking for God's guidance and presence. Yeah.
guidance is a word that Lori would use for trusted supervisor. So that's kind of accompaniment role, I guess,
Mhm.
you know, and providing that support around the job and what it entails and how to do it, so forth. Skilled, that Bill says skilled would be the word he would use for trusted supervisor. Yeah. Impartiality again comes up. So, yeah, informed about United Church and M&P policies and procedures. So knowing what your work is based on, what's the framework that you're working out of. That's an important one. And we've got two really good handbooks for you. And I'm assuming that you've had a look at one of them, which is the M&P handbook. And then there's another resource handbook. And they're both on the United Church website. They're on the Shining Waters and Canadian Shield website as well. Those are two really important places to look. Empathetic is a word that comes up for trusted supervisor from Kathy. It takes time to help if possible. Curious and open-minded.
There's that curious and open-minded. So that sense of entering into a conversation with an open and curious mind. Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
you've given so much feedback here around trusted confidant and trusted supervisor. And I really appreciate Rob's explanations and earlier. And I wonder, you know, as you think about this, trusted confidant, trusted supervisor, which image fits you better, the trusted confidant or trusted supervisor? What gifts or skills are you going to bring to your M&P committee? Just keep that in mind. If you said to your M&P as a new M&P, you say, you know what, I'm really good at having trusted and being a trusted confidant. I can have those conversations and with an open and curious mind. Or I really am great at policy stuff, and I can learn that United Church policy, and I can learn that, and I can bring that skill. I'm a trusted supervisor, something that I've got some really good gifts with. So think about which one you'd really like to excel, bring your skills as an M&P member. Now, one of the things we said to you earlier. Dale?
But just there's a question that
Okay.
we'd like to address, but we can go ahead. I just didn't want us to move on to the next agenda item until we address this question.
Oh, please do, Dale.
Okay.
You're on the chat there. Thanks.
Yeah. So it's about confidentiality, and so Lois is asking, what happens if an M&P committee is talking to their governing body, the council, the board, about a staffing situation, and she's asking, what about the minister who needs to be at the meeting, because we know that's our policy in the United Church, that the board cannot meet without the appointed or called minister being a part of the meeting. So Lois is asking, what happens if the minister is at the meeting and we're talking about an employee? And I'm assuming Lois is We could talk about both scenarios. One is if it was another employee, and another would be, what if the employee that they're talking about is the minister?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know how much we're going to be able to get into. We're going to have time at this kind of introductory course.
Yeah.
But I would say, Lois, that the minister should not be surprised that your conversation and your permission to have this conversation with the board, the minister should be totally aware of what is what MMP wants to talk about or needs to talk about with the board. There should be no surprises.
And that's either
that
way, whether it's about another employee or about the minister themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dale. I appreciate that, making that clear as well. And yes, there is the option of in camera, but again, there should be no surprise to that minister. MMP should be very clear that they're going to ask to go in camera to have a conversation. But transparent, that's where Rob's talking about process transparency. Process is never confidential. You never surprise your staff by throwing something at them that they're not aware of. And Judith, I would love to take you up, but we do have to move on. Is it a quick question?
Well, I just wondered if that minister should perhaps excuse themselves from the meeting. Would that be the thing to do?
Yeah, well, that's that in camera. So it could just be the board to have the conversation, and then the minister needs to be present for any motions that come out of that conversation. So the minister is invited back to be present for any motions of based on the recommendations of MMP. But again, transparency around process. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on now. And because one of the things that, just to let you know, 4 times a year, we have M&P check-ins, and that's where you bring your tough questions. And Dale and I will be there. And then I know Rob does that with his M&P members. I don't know if it's quarterly but regularly. And that's where you can bring your tough questions. But tonight, for this introductory course, we're not taking up your tough questions tonight. We're going to keep going so that we get everything presented to you that we want to. And now we're going to switch gears, and we're going to invite Rob to talk about having tough conversations. So, Rob, over to you.
Thanks, Todd. Excellent conversation. And I really feel our staff throughout both of our regions are in good hands by the kind of information you folks and the questions you've been asking. But one of the things we want to talk about, because I think it's a reality, and that is conflict. And it's an inevitable part of the work that we do. The case study, I think, is funny in one way. Who can imagine somebody liking Onward Christian Soldiers? But the reality is that it's true. It's real in our churches that we are struggling with conflict. And I stumbled upon this little model called the pinch crunch model, and I kind of like it. So what happens is we begin with relationships in the church. And we should begin with sort of clear expectations. And I was just doing an exit interview recently, and I was asking him about, how it went and something about expectations. And the minister said, we should have started by outlining exactly what our expectations were, and then we could be evaluating it at the end. And I thought that was really important. So I think it is important to sit down with each of our employees and figure out what our expectations. But as we begin, let's just keep to my notes here. When you begin a new relationship, you begin by gathering information and sharing data and clarifying expectations. And then eventually this leads to some kind of role clarity and stability. So all is well. You've taken the time to figure out your expectations. You've built the relationship, and things are happening. And, the relationships are stable, there's productivity, there's confidence, it's going well. And then something out of the ordinary, a pinch happens, something that makes you ask, what just happened there? I just feel like I got a pinch that it didn't feel right. And they can come in many different forms, and they're different for every person. But intuitively, something's not quite right. And a snide comment, and a pinch represents a disruption of the shared expectations. A pinch that is something that's done or not done that violates one of our expectations or assumptions. Pinches are private. We feel them, though the one who caused the pinch may not be aware that they they've caused the pinch. Sometimes a pinch can be so subtle, we shrug it off and we try to ignore it. The problem is when we ignore these pinches is that they can lead to a crunch. And a crunch is an open conflict with both parties are now aware that there's a problem. And the key is to listen to the pinches and check them out by gathering more information and clarifying expectations. A crunch is harder to recover from. So it's important to listen to the pinches and facilitate conversation about the pinches before they become crunches. So creating a space where staff can share those pinches with you so that you as an M&P can find ways to deal with the pinches and the expectations that they're touching before we ever get to a crunch. Because once a crunch happens, it's as you can see there that sometimes there's termination, sometimes there's reconciliation, and sometimes there's premature reconciliation that doesn't always work itself out either. So this is a really interesting model, but we want to kind of go back to that role play for a moment and rethink about what was going on there. And we've kind of want you to look at, Dale really is a good chair of M&P, and we that was just sort of a bad moment in Dale's life, and this is actually his encounter with the minister. So this is Act 2. So, okay. I'm just beginning, right? Okay. No.
Yep.
Shouldn't there be another opening line? I guess not. We just aren't going to have good worship services until Todd starts to do his job as music director and lets me do mine. He doesn't understand the needs of this congregation. He wants to do all this new music. And I've been hearing from the congregation that they want to sing songs they know. And I'm the one that hears about it when people in the pews are unhappy.
Okay, so tell me a bit more about how you and Todd have been working out the music for worship. How does that actually happen?
Well, I often make some suggestions about what hymns would go well with, what I'm preaching about. I think you would agree that that's a valid input, but he always bristles when I tell him what would work well. You'd think he would be grateful for my input.
So the issue is about how the music gets picked and what the final choices are. Is that right?
Maybe, but I really think, Dale, it's more about someone who just doesn't want to cooperate with others. We have to work out as a team, and he needs to respect who I am. I am the minister of this congregation.
All right.
So I'm just looking at the chat. I'm confused. Is the pinch something that pastoral staff does, or is it something that happens in the congregation, which pinches someone in the pastoral staff? It's both. It's really what we're talking about here is a pinch is we have this relationship going on. And maybe the minister does something that pinches the congregation, or maybe there's something in the congregation that pinches one of the staff. It's being aware of those pinches. Okay, so what are the pinches in this scenario here? I'll just tell you what I think are the pinches here. First of all, Todd, the music director, has in his position description that he chooses the music. The minister, Rob, wants to play a role in what music is chosen for the worship service. Todd doesn't want that. And so the pinch there is, Rob's wanting a little bit more going beyond what the expectations that they might have upon when they started. And the minister wants to team with the music director to discuss the larger picture of what's happening in the worship service and within the congregation around music. And there's resistance from the music director. Are there any other pinches?
Anybody else? You can unmute yourself if you wish, or you can put something into the chat to respond to what Rob just asked you. What other pinches do you see? Anybody?
Well, some in the people in the congregation, and I won't say the whole congregation, are actively commenting on the music that they would like to have as well, which is possibly resulting in a pinch between the two of them.
It's almost like a triangle, isn't it? There's and the minister's kind of taken on the angst of some members in the congregation. Yes. Anything else? Lack of respect, Natalie says, and the minister. Okay, there's a power thing there that Judith is is bringing up. The minister, yeah, I heard that too. But any other pinches? So power over somebody else rather than a collaborative approach. Any others?
I would suggest that maybe they have a book or something for people to put down hymns that the congregation would put down. Is the kind of music that they would like to have in church, and give them a chance to.
That's a great suggestion, but we still have this pinch between our minister and the music director to figure out, right?
Maybe discuss it with the three of them together instead of just, first.
That's a good idea. Get people around the table. Who needs to be around the table for this conversation? Tenley says each of the minister and music director expect respect, but don't demonstrate respect. Yes. So where's the appreciation of each other in that? I think this is Donna Sinclair says the choir master perhaps wanting performance rather than worship. Yeah, we could be critical of the musician. So maybe there's an expectation that needs to be renegotiated or reworked. And look at those expectations clearly. Yeah.
And you can sort of see as we've been following through some of these comments is why it's important to deal with the pinch, because already we're sort of lining up, some siding with the minister and some siding with the music director. And that's kind of what can happen. And once that becomes solidified, you're into a very deeper kind of conflict there. And so it's really important.
Well,
sorry,
did you notice that that Dale said, okay, so the issue I'm hearing here. So M&P is not about saying, oh, well, that minister, I can't believe he's, the minister. I can't believe he said that. you're not judging or evaluating or trying to correct. What you're doing is you're listening for the issue at the heart of the pinch. What's the issue that's going on here? And Dale said, you know, so the issue is about how music gets picked. That's not judgment on either of those people. It's how does the music, how do we want the music to get picked is the issue. So don't make it about the person when you're listening to this work with people. Don't make it about the person, make it about the issue. Find the issue. That's your job as an MMP committee. Find the issue.
Yeah,
Dale.
I think that's great, Todd. I mean, I think it becomes pinch turns to crunch when you lose sight of the issue and you start focusing on the person. And you start using words like stubborn, irresponsible, you know, that he wants to embarrass me. Then you're into conversation about personalities. And if you go down that rabbit hole, you're probably going to hit that crunch. And so that's the whole idea for you as M&P committees, is to try and keep it focused on the issue and separate the issue from the person. Because when people are in conflict, they don't always see the issue. They see the other person as an obstacle to you know, what their goal may be. And so I think that's a great point, Todd.
Great, thank you. Well, and I see here, should MMP representative check out job description? Absolutely. Make sure you're clear on the job description. But the job description may need to be changed depending on your conversation about the issue, about because there's a change in expectations happening here. The minister is saying, oh, I would like to have more input on music. I'd like to be collaborative. Well, let's talk about that issue of how music gets chosen. Maybe there's going to be a shift, maybe not. And I love Judith's problem as problem, no people as problem. Can we put that up on our walls? That is something that we all need to put on our walls as MMP. Let's keep it about the issue, not put down people. People are not the problem. All right, we've got to move on, Dale, because we want to, oh my heavens, there's more coming in. But we'll just keep going here. And I like negotiating for a win-win. Thank you, Sandra. And roles and descriptions can change because the team has changed. Absolutely, people are people. We change over the years. We need to be flexible. So let's we're gonna Dale, I'm gonna turn it over to you to set up the last piece of our role play, which is getting all of us together around the table.
Thanks, Todd. And I'm just gonna find you so that I can spotlight you so that you can join our conversation. There we go. So I want to help Rob and Todd listen to each other with my help as an MMP person, so that they can hear the pinch, so identify the issue, and together start to negotiate that win-win that was talked about. And so I'm going to pull Rob and Todd, the music director, and Rob, the minister, together in and listen carefully to what happens here, and then we're gonna do a little analysis after we do this last scene. So thanks, Rob and Todd, for coming in to this meeting. I am aware from speaking with both of you that there's some tension in your working relationship, and I'm really hoping that we can hear each other today and find a way to resolve that tension. And so, Todd, I want to start with you. Could you describe what you see as the issue? So what's the issue for you, and tell us about what the impact has been as a result of that.
Okay. Well, for me, the issue is that I've been hired by this church to do the music.
Okay.
And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the job I do to lead the music. It's very close to my heart, but I don't feel that Rob understands what is in my job description and how hard it is for me to do my job when he wants to choose the music.
No. I don't want to choose the
No,
music.
okay, actually, Rob, I'll get to you in a sec, but let's let Todd finish, okay? So Todd, what is the impact of that on you? Like, what's the feeling that you're getting from this?
I'm feeling that Rob doesn't trust me. He doesn't trust me to be able to pick good music, and that I'm supposed to defer to his choices in music. It's demeaning to me. I trust Rob to do the sermons. I trust him to provide pastoral care to people in the congregation, to preside over the sacraments, and he's good at it. And I wish he would trust me to do what I'm good at.
Okay. Thanks, Todd. I hear you saying that you want to be respected for your music experience and knowledge.
Yeah, that's it. That's right,
Okay.
Dale. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So Rob, let's hear from you now. Could you describe what you think the issue is and how you've been impacted?
Well, as I started to say, I don't want to choose all the music, but I do think we kind of need to work together so that the music and the rest of the worship service are planned together. They're not like two separate things. The issue for me is that it feels like Todd wants to work in a silo, and that's causing me some anxiety. I really want us to cooperate as a team. And he needs to know that many of the congregants aren't happy with some of the music that he picks, especially the new pieces of music. They don't know it, and it's me that they tell their upsetness to. It's me that hears it.
Sorry, but that's not the message I'm hearing. People are really happy with the music. They love the music here. I'm not sure who you're listening to, Rob.
Okay, just a sec, Todd. Let's stay focused on the issue here, Rob. Rob, I hear you saying that for you, the issue is about working together as minister and music director, and that the impact on you is that it's making you anxious. Is that right?
Yes. And I'm getting complaints from congregation about the music. I can't ignore that.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks to both of you for your thoughts and for listening to each other. Let's talk about your roles and how decisions are made about the music in worship.
And end scene.
That's the end of our role play.
Okay, folks. So I really want you to unmute yourself if you want, or to put into the chat now. So what did you see that MMP chairperson do to address the pinch? What actions by that MMP, or what phrases, what questions did that MMP committee or MMP chair ask that got at the pinch, that got at the issue? What did he do? How did it make you feel? Kathy said, how did that make you feel when that happened? So that you could hear the feelings.
Well, he instructed him to let the other fellow finish what he was saying.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful, Dale. Yes, he just respectfully brought it back to the person. You will have your turn. Now it's Todd's turn, or now it's Rob's turn. Yes. What else?
There's a couple of comments in the chat, Todd.
Thanks, Dale. Go ahead.
What Karen noticed, or hold on. Kathy said, how did it make you feel? It was important, to get those emotions out, the feelings.
Yeah.
Carolyn noticed that the issue was focused on and the impact, and that there was time was given to each person in the conversation.
Great process. We're going to make sure each of you have time to listen to each other. Yeah.
Karen talked about active listening and reflection. And again, focusing on the issue.
Did I get that right? I heard you say that, Dale. Is that right? Am I hearing you correctly? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And notice that that I diffused the upset feelings and allowed each person to speak.
Dale, how did you diffuse the upset feelings? What do you remember doing that helped that?
Yeah, I think it was allowing people to allowing both you and Rob to talk about the impact that it had on you. And
well,
so
yeah.
Well,
and you also, I saw you also make it or protect the space to be safe. So that's what, like when you allowed with the interruption, when you stopped the interruption and got back to the person, this is this person's turn. We need to listen to this person without interruption. You made it a safe space, and that brought the heat. That brought the upset feelings down. People knew they were safe.
Yes, and that's what people are saying in the chat as well. So diplomacy was exercised. Judith talks about how the two were able to recognize each other's points of view. Natalie says, yeah, that I stayed impartial. I stayed completely impartial. So you notice the difference between this time around and that first time when I had the conversation and I clearly took one person's side, and that wasn't an impartial conversation, but this one was more. And another thing that Judith noticed is how I paraphrased back to so repeated back, not necessarily word for word, but just kind of summarized and paraphrased back to the people who are speaking, so that I think what that does is it makes them feel heard. So you don't just jump to the next person right away, but you reflect back to the person what they've said. Yeah. And sometimes you may not get it right. You know, in this case, Todd and Rob said, yeah, that's how I felt. But often what you'll get when you ask that question is they'll say, well, not really. And then there's clarification that happens, and that's important as well.
Yeah, wonderful. That paraphrasing or reflecting back what you heard is also about creating that safe space. So lowering the feelings of upset. When somebody feels they are really being honored and listened to, then they know the place is safe, and they know that they can share their feelings in that safe space and share what's really going on in them. Yeah.
And sometimes we do in these conversations, we do something called reframing. And so if Todd says, well, you know, Rob is just a really stubborn person, and what you can do as the M&P person is you can reframe that, and you can say something like, so you're not feeling respected, or you're not feeling like you're getting the space to speak. And then it's not about Rob's stubbornness. It's about the issue. Okay, the issue is that I don't feel like my voice is being heard. So sometimes we do that reframing when it looks like the conversation is going more towards, character, attack and that sort of thing.
Wonderful, thank you.
Another comment from Beatrice: on the surface, it seems like two egos are battling, but in both cases, each person takes pride in their role and wants to do a good job that they can be proud of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There was a couple ahead of you, above there, Dale, from Kathy, I saw. Behavior, impact, outcome. Here is the behavior that happened. Here is the impact, and the outcome was the issue. So that's a good frame to use to kind of think through what the issue is. So I thank you very much for that, Kathy. It's a great framing for coming to the issue. Thank you. And there's one here from Vicky says, Dale just kept asking questions in order to clarify. That's that open, curious questions that we keep coming back to. They're questions that you honestly don't know the answer to. and you're just asking, how did that make you feel? Well, Dale had no idea how Todd or Rob were feeling, and that's just an open, honest question. Yeah, thank you.
Another comment from Lori. She noticed that the facilitator modeled non-judgmental, open dialogue, and that was an opportunity to find middle ground between Todd and Rob, between the two of you. Yeah,
wonderful.
And I think the Beatrice talks about the first. Just before that, she says, on the surface, it seems like two egos battling, but in both cases, each person takes pride in the role and wants to do a good job that they can be proud of. And that's one of the things in conflict, is trying to find out what do we share, and if we can see that we're coming at we're wanting to do we're just coming at this project from a different angle, but we both share this, that Todd and I both share a desire to do a good job for our people, to find that common where our goals, our expectations can be realigned. Right?
Would anybody like to unmute and bring and comment to what Rob said, or anybody else said? Well, thank you for that. I hope that gave you a sense of one of the things I think we wanted to really take away from this conversation about pinch crunch is, don't ignore something that you might hear along the way. If you sense that there is a conflict, sometimes I've heard people say or even think, you guys are professionals. Would you just work it out? And or, oh, I don't want to deal with that. We're just going to deny that this conflict's happening and go on. Meanwhile, your staff is really struggling. So, to really open, honest questions, to not let that pinch go by the wayside, but do some kind of plan around reconciliation when you get a hold of one of those pinches. And if it's a pinch that you're struggling to deal with, then you have a conversation with Rob, Dale, or myself, because we have resources within the church. It may need a more skilled facilitator for that conversation, and that's okay, but don't let it go too long into and become a crunch. That was one of our main things. And it's about the issue, not the person. Problem as the problem. People are not the problem. Okay, so those are two things. If you could take those two things away and give some leadership to those times, we would be very, really happy with where we've come today. So I'm just going to get you to use that chat again. Trusted confidant, trusted supervisor. Just curious, which one fits you? And you just type in there, you know what? I think I have the skills to be a trusted confidant. You know what? I think I have the skills to be a trusted supervisor. We're just curious. Go ahead and put into the chat, which one do you think fits you? Thank you.
Something I wanted to say is that the thing is, we need both.
We do.
And a good M&P committee would have both a trusted confidant and trusted supervisors. That it's for all of our staff.
I often remember a supervisor, and I'm glad you're leaning towards trusted supervisor, Jane. Good for you. We need both. And I remember my educational supervisor when I was a young minister saying to me, so you're gifted in some things, that's great. The rest you have to exercise obedience. When you're not gifted, we don't feel like you're gifted, but you know what? We still have to step in and step up. And that's work, but we balance the two. Thanks, Rob. I like a confidant by supervisor of as needed. So combining the two there in Lorna, that's wonderful.
And Judith says something similar. Supervisors grow from trusted confidants.
There you go.
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful?
And I do want to, I mean, what I'm seeing in the chat is quite a few more comfortable with the trusted confidant. And you know, I think it speaks to the fact that many of us do come to these positions without, you know, human resources experience. That we're not trained in employment law, we're not trained in supervision. We do also have other training and workshops for you. And so you'll hear about those in the future. We do workshops on managing lay employees, where we get into some of the ins and outs of Ontario employment law. We do webinars on evaluations, doing assessments of your staff. We've done workshops on managing conflict. There's resources on our website as well. And so particularly around the supervision part. And so if you look there on the Shining Waters website, there's a section for M&P committees, and there's a whole bunch of resources there for you. So you'll grow into that.
Canadian Shield too. There's a great website page for M&Ps on the Canadian Shield website as well.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dale. That's great. So folks, what Dale was saying there reminds me to tell you a few things before we end our evening. So first of all, you're going to be getting a follow-up email from us about our workshop tonight. You're going to get the PowerPoint presentation that you saw. So you'll have the PowerPoint. You'll have that pinch crunch diagram to chew over. You'll also get links to the website, the M&P website pages that Dale was just talking about, where you'll find resources that you can use for your work as an M&P committee, that you'll also find eventually, not right away, it takes us a little while, you'll find a recording of this workshop on that on the website page, both the Canadian Shield and the Shining Waters, so that you can show your colleagues, or you can go back and revisit one of the conversations. And finally, there's going to be a link there to an evaluation. And this evaluation is really important. Last year, we did this workshop, and the evaluation really helped us make some changes to this one to make it better. And so if you would just take a few moments, it's only 3 questions, 3, and answer those 3 questions for us, that will really give us some guidance for next year. So I just want to say to my colleagues, Rob Smith and Dale Hildebrand, thank you so much for your leadership tonight. And it's been wonderful to be with all of you here tonight. We have a kind of a fun practice. And if you can go up, and you'll see in the right-hand corner, view. And if you can just press gallery. So view and then gallery, where you can see everybody. You might not be able to see everybody in one page, but you can pretty much look around at these wonderful faces of M&P members from a majority of Ontario. Let me tell you, our 2 regional councils cover a huge swath of Ontario. And I wonder if you could think of a blessing. Maybe it's a blessing that your minister or your worship leader says on Sunday. A good wish, I wish you well, or God bless you, or think about a blessing that you would like to bring your fellow M&P members. And then when I give you the thumbs up, have you thought about something, a blessing that you can say? And then what we're going to do is we're going to unmute, and you just say it. Don't wait for anybody else to say theirs, just say it. And it'll be a cacophony of blessing for each other. And then we will go on into our evening and watch the third period of the Toronto Maple Leaf game. So, have you got a blessing in mind? All right, so unmute yourself.
God bless you all.
God bless you. Take care.
Lord
Be
bless
well.
Stay well.
Be with you.
Lord bless you.
God
and keep
bless
you.
all of you. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Be always with you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we got a cat too.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
nice to see the cats. Nice
And
to
we're
see the
not
cats.
finding out about hockey. We're going to see if Matea won tonight.
Oh, yes,
Oh,
Matea on Jeopardy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, let's hope she's still going.
She will be. She's so smart.
Good night, everybody. Have a
Thank you.
great
Bye.
evening.
Good night.
Stay
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Here.
Thank you, everyone.
Good
Thank you
night.
to the,
Thank you.
thank you to the staff team. Thank you.
You're
Good
welcome.
night, Jane.